Our 1968 Cutlass LSA engine swap is progressing nicely. And now we have the cooling system and vintage air conditioner installed, we've buttoned up the fuel system, and we've successfully fired the engine.
We got the 442 running with the new LSA connection cruise. We got our vital signs going on the HV tuner's data logger there. And it's running a little rich, but we haven't adjusted the fuel pressure, and the out-of-the-box tune probably isn't going to be quite perfect because we've got different exhausts and different intakes than GM wrote the tune for. Just run this thing on the dyno a little bit and dial it in and be ready to go do some burnouts.
When you buy a brand new crate motor, there's always a braking procedure. In the case of the GM crate motor, they want you to start it up, let it warm up, check for any odd noises, and then they want you to do a few pulls either on the street or a dyno. We chose to do the dyno because there's a lot of open-ended questions with a car that's been so far apart. The procedure is relatively simple. You do 4 half-throttle pulls to 4,000 RPM. And 2 full-throttle pulls to 4,000 RPM, letting the engine coast down to idle in between. Once you've done this, you let it cool off, change the oil, and you're ready to drive it gently for about 500 miles until it's fully broken in. After we'd put a few miles on the car, we took it back to the dyno and did a dyno tune on it to make sure that the air-fuel ratio was correct under full boost. The GM tune is very close. It's the same tune that comes in the Cadillac CTS-V, but a bunch of things have changed. We made our own air intake, we're running a different heat exchanger, we're running headers and a different exhaust. So we wanted to make sure that everything was happy. We strapped the car down, did a few test runs, and noticed that the air-fuel was a little bit off. I adjusted the air curve and ran it a few more times, and we decided it was safe to do a power pull. The result of all this is that we actually got it to make 560 horsepower at the wheels. Now that's way more than the engine's advertised at. It makes 556 at the crankshaft in the Cadillac. We attribute this to all the modifications we did external to the engine, and ultimately we were almost to 700 at the flywheel with no internal modifications to the engine at all.